Tim Higgins here. We're going to talk about combining the powers of APM and AXA. And this is really for advanced insights, and you'll see what the scope is here shortly. Now, the DX is just a new term. It's always been APM in the past, but basically it's web-based. So it's a SaaS. With saying that, the things that you want to think about when you think about APM and AXA together is part of that shift left. You want to be able to catch your errors sooner, your bugs sooner. You want to be able to fix things before they get into production, obviously. Sometimes we're not as lucky. Not every company can do that. But for the most part, that's where you want to kind of move to, right? To try to catch it as quick as possible. So within this webinar, we're going to have a couple of scopes. One of them is how the issue is identified quickly. I always say time versus effort. How much money? Well, we know money is time. So how long does it take for you to get to that issue? And number two, how customer impact is minimized. 99% of, well, I'd hate to say 99% times, but maybe 80-20. 80% of the time, you don't realize you have a problem with your app until the customer tells you that. And that's a really bad business. Unfortunately, with the web and the way things are, that's just kind of the way things fall in place. Hopefully with AXA, you'll see that there's a way for you to jump ahead of the game. Now, number three kind of goes with number one, is once you find the problem, you have to go into debug mode. You have to triage and troubleshoot. And you want to be able to do that as quick as well. Again, time versus effort. So talk a little bit about the demo, even though we're not going to show this. I want you to see that it's a really full blown out demo. And what I mean by that is that it is a true enterprise application that you'd probably be running inside your environment. Now, there are other features of APM. Once you add DX APM, DX AXA, there's IO, which is, you'll see that in a few minutes. It adds a lot of stuff together and it creates what we call AI ops. Now, we're not going to cover all that in this demo, but you're beginning to see that here. So we've got our dashboards. This is part of AI learning, right? Artificial intelligence learning. If we have time, we may try to touch base on that, but maybe not. Maybe save that for another webinar. But you also have your deep dive, which we will get into because that's where your debugging is. Now, the use case for the application is the customer will commit a change. It goes to a webhook. It goes to a build deploy. Then we'll go through BlazeMeter. Now, we use Jenkins for this over here and Get, but you'll see that in a few seconds. The BlazeMeter then would do SendMetrics APM as well, but APM also has a Jenkins plugin. Now, to let you know, you don't have to have Jenkins or BlazeMeter for any of this. All you really need is APM and AXA. Now, some of the components, excuse me, in the demo, again, as I said before, we're not going to go over all these, but the dashboards, I'll try to show you those. I'm just trying to give you a heads up. So when you see something like, hey, Tim, what is that? Okay, so that's where it came from, right? So you got dashboards, the Jenkins plugin, BlazeMeter, GitHub. We kind of talked about those a few seconds ago. We have some cloud integrations because this is a Kubernetes application. You'll see that with, you'll see the nodes and things like that. And our database is running in AWS. So you'll see the Amazon RDS. The database piece. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. There's too many acronyms, right? Some app synthetic monitoring, your APM. So a lot of this you're going to see are OI that I talked about earlier, operation intelligence. Let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the demo is kicked off, and then we're going to go look at the demo. This is the Jenkins APM Jenkins plugin, and it's showing me right away that we're starting to have some downtime. Okay, it's some slow time. So what happens is the Jenkins flow goes through, the BlazeMeter gets kicked off, then the APM, and then so forth. Now, I'm not going to spend time to show you that because that's really not what this demo is about. So now let's try to refocus. I did that really fast because I didn't want to waste a lot of time on slide decks. Everybody wants to see hands-on, right? So when you think about monitoring, whenever you come into DX SaaS, this should be your landing pad or landing page. Depending on your license, you will probably see all three of these, okay? So this is AXA, APM, and OI. Or I like to say operation intelligence because OI just sounds, I don't know, like OI, right? It just doesn't sound right. But when you put all these together, then you have AI ops, okay? So let's go in and look at today's focuses. We're going to look at AXA. So let's go ahead and open this up. Now, AXA is driven off of the user's perspective, okay? Maybe I should tell you that real quick. Let's go back over here. Let's look at my launch pad. So this is your end user's experience. Clicking on websites, playing around at your shopping cart, the end user. APM, and this is something that I really express towards clients, APM really is application performance monitoring. You really want it to be focused around your application, okay? Now, these two work very well together because my user is using probably some HTML page that is connected to some backend code of some form, or if it's C#, Java, something like that. And not to get too detailed, but you know, a lot of times it picks up what's going through the compiler. Now, if you've seen any of my other webinars or videos, I do a lot on APM, but today our focus is on AXA. So let's go to AXA. Now here, as we land, this is the landing page that you can tell has a lot of great information. I see my total users, my users the last 24 hours. Now we're going to change the timeline in a few minutes. This is just your very starting that you hit, right? So I open it up, I logged in. This is what I see. Notice I have all apps. I really only have one app, but if you had multiple apps, you can choose which ones you care about. This is by session count. I can change this too if I want to. Data received, data sent. There's, like I said, there's a lot of great information just to get you started by looking at your users' perspectives, okay? Now, the crash, I don't have any, so we'll hop over here and you'll see that will load there. Total sessions, right? Total HTTP requests. Now, this is the last 24 hours. I'm going to change it when we get into debug mode the last 30 days, and you'll see a lot of this change. I'm not going to do it at first because it's a lot of data, right? And so it takes up it takes a little bit to run. Now, a lot of this is pretty common sense. When you get down here, though, to your map, let's put a little real estate here. Now it's at usage. I can see my performance. Click on it. Now, I've only got the one running. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a simulated user over here on my laptop that I'm running in the background. And that's what's creating this. But of course, you would see the heat map. It would be everywhere. Now, because I don't have a lot going on, I don't have any hot spots. And luckily, I don't have any problems. 404s, you know, any kind of security issues, or which is, you know, what, 202s. But right now, everything looks good. No, 200s, I'm sorry. So, and then if I scroll up, every one of these is clickable, which means I can get more detail. Now, to be honest with you, the clickable really just takes you through the menu, okay? So if I looked at total sessions, which is one of my favorites, and it's probably where you're going to spend most of your time, is here I can see the last 24 hours, all the sessions that were created by my users, okay? So let's click on one of these. And then here I can see this is a Chrome. It was Linux, unknown of the version, that's fine. I have my user, it's web, and they were in Kansas. And here I can see my HTTP responses, my requests, and my events. This is a list of the events that were done. And I'm kind of saying it loosely because this is by the session, but it could also be by the page, which you're going to see here shortly. So this is the start, page appear, and I'm kind of talking slow on purpose. Give you a second to look at it. If I click on network though, I can see that this is an actual page. On this page, if I had the right agent set up, which I don't, I would be able to see the memory, CPU, and disk, okay? I can see the value. I can see the transaction where it came from. Let's see if we can get a little bit more detailed one. And we're not in debug mode. We're not what I'm considering debug right now. So I'm kind of just clicking on some of these just to show you. I can click on this one, and this breaks it down. Let's get some real estate here to a waterfall chart, which myself as a developer, I look at this as more of a trace, right? Because I can see which one was called and when and where. Now I can also see, for an example, if you don't know what the colors are, I can roll my mouse over, but I can also look up here as well. Okay. But this gives me a lot of good information. I can see right here, that this JPEG, it's red. It probably took a while to load. Maybe it was a big JPEG compared to everything else. So let's minimize that. Let's go to back. Now, these are the transactions. Now, again, I'm speaking this loosely because I'm looking at sessions. In a few minutes, we're going to look at a page, and then it makes more sense, okay? Here, these are fine. Notice these are purple, okay? So I could click on one of these to get more information about it. So now I'm looking at the transaction, the event of my shopping page, and that's going to be the index, right? So the home landing of the shopping page. And again, as I look through here, I've got a lot of good information. I can get CPU, disk, and memory. This is really important. So I'm going to capture this, and I think I already did on a notepad, but just kind of remember that for now. Because that one we're going to come back to when we think about debugging, okay? Now, let's go back up here, and let's go back to the home. One thing that's important is when you click on these, so if I look at users in the last 24 hours, it says none, but it's still, there it is. If I click on this, it's going to take a few seconds to load, but I can see that my users have been pretty much in all of US, right? So you can barely see Hawaii, Alaska, you know, and the US. I can see my platform is Linux, web. It can pick up depending on what your user's using. So iPhone, Android, right? And I think when I do the 30 days, I think you should be able to see that. But let's go back again. Because what I mainly want you to realize is what you're looking at here, everything can feed through over here to the navigation pane. So if I click on performance, again, this is pretty nice. I can click on network performance, and depending on what networking devices you have, right? So if you have other things, they all can play a part in this. Let's go ahead and change this. For an example, I can see my confirmed price is, you know, it takes the longest. So these are problematic URLs that could be causing a problem. Again, we're going to come back to that whenever we look at debugging, which is going to be in just a few seconds. I can look at failures, and if I had any, I'd be able to say, give me 404s, you know, 200s, whatever. Let's go back to slow times to me. If I look through here, I can see these are all GIFs, right? I don't care too much about GIFs, right? That's JavaScript. Most of the times people don't have problems with JPEGs or GIFs just because they're images. And notice this says page. So let's click on this one. This is a shop page, and I have no errors, all calls. And now if this is loaded, I could do problematic, but notice there's no problems. I don't have any problems. So I could sort by problems. This is web. If there was any notations, I would see that there. And if there was a snapshot, that would come up there. And we'll show you snapshots in a few seconds. So as I click, now I'm back at my session view. And that's the reason I was kind of being loosely earlier when I was telling you, because to me, the session view is where you're going to be doing a lot of your work. Again, if I click on this page, I have another one of those URLs here. If I click on the world, I get my waterfall chart. But if I click on this looking thing, technically it's a folded up map. But when I click on it, this takes me right to APM. And now I can start seeing my metrics. If I click on that, oops, all right, try to get some real estate. I can see that I have a problem right here. And here's my error, number of pages hits per interval. Now, in all fairness, this is an alert that I created, or someone created. I probably didn't create it, but you can create as many alerts as you want. And I'm gonna show you how to do that shortly. So if I click on this information here, you'll see things load as I need it, including my business transactions. That's very important. So if I click back here, and I always pick the worst one, which is here, just because usually that's your problem child. And now I get a stack trace of that call. Now that was kind of a lot of bouncing around, so I'm going to kind of recap real quick. But as I can see, there's a lot of good information here. And of course, you would have a lot more depending. We used to call this the upside down birthday cake because it would actually it should look similar to a cake. Now, each of these are flows based off of that user's action. So whatever the user clicked or moved forward, then you would see that transaction flow through here. And if there's database calls, I'll be able to see the SQL calls. If there's method calls, like this is a load event, well, let's say if there's some coding calls, then you would see those as well. If I open up this one, you might be able to see it just because this one is more of a backend. So these are services. Okay. And if I click on that, take it a second to load. See, now I can see the servlet calls. I should be able to see some of the method calls. Here's the backend. So I can see this operation name is called price services. So there's a lot of stuff here that can help you triage whatever's going with your app. Now I kind of jumped game for a second just because I wanted to show you that. But let's go ahead and close this. I'm going to clear my filters. This is APM. Again, if you don't know APM, I have a lot of good, webinars and videos and stuff out there for that. But the point was, in just a few seconds, I was able to come up here, go to my sessions, find a session that has a long running time. Granted, 300 milliseconds, nobody even knows the page is there for that. But the point is, with a couple of clicks, I was able to get to the map. I was able to open it up in this way, and I can even do the upside down birthday cake. Remember the URL I said to remember earlier? You don't have to click to the map. You can click on that, and that will take you right to it. Now, I don't know why it's not clickable for me. I'm using a Mac or Chrome. Usually that's a clickable link. So I just copied and pasted. But I was able to get back to what we call the trace view just by copying that link coming from my user's perspective. So if I close this, I can still see a lot of good information. I see I've got 10 nodes here. And if I look at them, you got sign on, we got my shop index, my new order. So I've got all my pages here as they go into this business transaction that then gets moved into this middle tier. And the same thing, if I open it up here, I can start seeing the metrics and I can start interacting with the metrics. So we're going to go ahead and kind of slip on our debug hat just to look at these metrics for a second. If I pull up the metrics, let me click on one. I'm going to dig in here. See, here's our pages. And the metrics are loading. Now I can pull up and look at the metrics. Now I should be able to do a metric count. Okay, if there's any traces, I can see them here as well. And if there's any errors, I would be able to see those. Now those are obvious areas, which you have here. So if I click on one, let's just try to pick a problem child. This one seems to happen more than once. And if I click on it, notice it takes me to the upside down birthday cake, and I can actually see the errors this time. So this is the product list by category. I kind of ran all that together, and I can actually see the error message. Okay. So that is the error message I would either take back to my developers or my DBA. If it's a database error, like this one's a database one. So backend error message. So I can see right now, this is connected to my RDS. Here's the SQL call. We do not keep values on purpose because it's a security, but this is the SQL call, right? Select products, name, design, category from product where category equals whatever the value is. And then here I see communication link failure. The last packet successful received was that, whatever that milliseconds ago. But the point is now I've got something I can take that's in my hand. I can take this right here to the developers and say, hey, it looks like there's a problem. We need to get this resolved. Now, most of the time, your error on your front end is not the front end, it's the back end. So I guarantee you this database problem, call to this database call, moving forward up to here, is what's causing this error at the end of the day that is affecting them. Because notice now I don't even see the database error over here, but it is being interacted because it's deeper somewhere else, right? So we're going to get to that whenever we get into debugging. Again, we're kind of debugging now. I just want to show you how simple that was. Sorry, I had a cough for a second. So now if I go back to here, what we did, sorry, I was drinking my coffee. Now, if I go back to here, what we did was, I didn't want to cough on the mic and apologize about that. All we did was we started looking at our users. We looked at our total sessions. We were able to see our sessions based off of that. Here's the user. And if I click on it, again, I see the information broken down. And then if I click on one that says network, our page, then I start getting the information. Here's the upside down birthday cake. I can click here to get to the map, and I can click here to get to my waterfall view. It's really that quick and simple. Now, I know you're saying, Tim, we've never been trained on this. That's still a lot of clicking. Don't worry, I'm going to show you a shorter way of getting there in a few seconds. If I go down this list, and again, all these will take you to that list, but sometimes you want to get there right away. I can click on crashes and errors and see if there are any. I can click on app usage, which we already did. The sessions is automatically taking me to the sessions, but it's not filtered. It's all the sessions for that application, okay? Now, the app screens, I really love. If the end user is using an iOS or an Android or a web, let me click on those. And then what you should see is a flow of your application. Now, I don't have mine completely implemented correctly. Well, it is correctly, it's not fully. So you're not getting the video, the images. And the reason it's doing that is because when I'm simulating a user, I'm not really hitting a web page. I'm using the backend. But if I was going in through as a user, then you would see the images of the page themselves. But what you're seeing here is the actual flow based off of snapshots, okay? And if I had sessions, drops, and crashes, you would see those numbers as well, okay? So that's a really cool thing. Now, especially if you're using an iPhone, webs are pretty cool, but like when they're on the iPhone and like, well, I tried to click that button and that button didn't work and, I'm having issues, blah, 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 blah. It's nice to know what they're looking at, right? Okay, so the other thing I want to show you too, here's your app transactions. Again, these are pretty cool, but if I click on any of these, the thing that you want to look at here is you get your volume versus crashed and incomplete. The reason I paused is because, this one's not too bad. The reason I paused is because when I do it for 30 days, you'll see a lot of them, and then it starts making more sense. But when I click on that, I can see I've got a little blip right here where the user was incomplete, okay? And then now I have these flags called slow, okay? So everything's a slow time. So if I click on a session, guess where it's going to take me? To my session view. Now here, I got the same way that I was doing before. I have my upside down birthday cake. Okay, oops, sorry, I highlighted too much. I got my upside down birthday cake. Again, if I had the right agent connected, I'd be able to get the memory, CPU, and disk. If I click on my map, it's going to take me right to it. So, and it takes me right to the issue right here. And it's highlighted for me, so it's easy to see. Now, what I want to do though is I want to go over here and I'm going to do something crazy. And now you're thinking, Tim, let's not be too crazy, but we kind of have to, because I want to go for 30 days. Now, it's going to take it a while to load in some cases because that's a lot of data. So as you can see, this one's taking a little bit longer. That one's spun up. Okay. Users in the last 30 days. I thought we had more on the map, but I guess we don't. That's okay. But what I want to start looking at now is a little bit different. So if I look at my total sessions now, okay, now I can see I've got Linux, my user 1. So we'll click on this. And now, if I click on this, this will still give me the map view just like before. We're used to that. But if I go over here, I'm hoping to have more data. So if I look at app uses, now I can see there's a Linux, a Windows 8.1, and a Windows 7. Unfortunately, everybody right now is still web because I don't have a mobile device that we're using. But I can also see my users as their, if you look, this is the average, let's see, oh, here we go. This, the returned users, which is really cool. So maybe a user dropped off and they returned back, or maybe they finished their transaction and came back. We know the birth or not the birth, but the flow of a person using transactions on a web page really isn't opening up the web page and going from beginning to end. Sometimes they drop off. Sometimes they let it sit there for a while. The real use case, 80-20, maybe do 20% where people are dropping off is what to expect. Just because, they forget what they're doing, they got to go make coffee, they're doing something. right? So if I click on this view right here, this is user activities, I can see that we've got some actions here. Users sign on and sign up. Now this can get very big. I don't know why my user's not doing much. Earlier it was really long, so it really just depends. But what's most important here is I've got these reds. So I can see that this had 18 drop-offs and this one had 455 drop-offs. Now, if that was any other kind of error, that would show as well. If I click on my user journey, this is the journey that my end users are taking per session, okay? So for an example, this one had 1 drop. They went to 2 screens. Again, this is, I wish there was more screens, but sorry, it is what it is, right? So here I can see the data and I have 473 drops, which really isn't doing good for my app. So let's go see what's going on. I'm going to click on this one first. Now this is going to put us more into that debug mode, okay? And I'm just going to click on one of these. And again, it took us to our session view. Inside the session view, I see right away that I've got some events. Let's click on this map event, see what we got. Now we've got something a little bit different. Now this is something I haven't talked about before. We're in debug mode. All the thing I did was clicked on the user. I wanted to see the session. The session brought me here. I clicked on the map. The map brought me over here, and now I have these two. So let's click on this. And now we're in what we call debug mode of APM, or what I call debug mode, right? Somebody may call it something else. True term is analysis notebook, but to me, it's for debugging. And remember that whole time versus effort? So what happens is in the analysis notebook, APM tries to tell me the what, when, where, and how. So here's the what. Okay, so we got a database problem going on here. And I can copy this and send it to my end users. Or I can just copy it here and put it to a notepad if I want to, or an email. When did this happen? And basically, what was affected? So here we've got 9 components, right? And then down here, I've got 1 infrastructure component. So that's a database. And it looks like the problem we're telling you. It's this start looking here. So now I can see my database right here has an alert that was fired off. My danger is at 200, it's at 8, and this is my response time, which I can see right here. Now, again, you still have all the debugging features for you. So if I open this up, get some real estate here, zoom out a little bit. Looks like we still got the problem down here. Just digging in a little bit. And I can see what I'm showing you as it's kind of filling in these metrics over here. So let's go back. And what happens if I try this one? See, I don't even see an alert here, but if I drill in, I'll be able to see, let's zoom out a little bit, how this kind of unfolds. So front end, middle tier, it flows on in and then into our web. Now, if I go back and we click on this one, and if I click on this, let's get a little bit deeper. Again, my metrics are loading. So if I click on one of these, or let me dig in a little bit, I can begin to see the metrics that we talked about earlier. This is part of the debugging. The truth is you really don't need to debug because we're telling you what to debug. Now, if I wanted a comparison, I can click. So if I want to compare yesterday to, today, then I can do that, last week to this week. But I can see right now, I had an error 15 minutes ago that I don't have now. And I stopped running the simulation. So that's one of the reasons why. Now, I have no business transactions just because it's the database, there's no transactions going on right now. But as you can see, what we looked at earlier is that you started with the user's perspective. And then it brought us over to this view right here that allowed us to do a lot of work in it. This is your average response time. Okay, so I had 30 poor transactions out of 31K. Okay, really not a complaint. I have 30 errors, 30. So this is like how many of your transactions were faster than 1%? How many are fast? I mean, 1 second, 2 second, 2 to more seconds, like, like 3 seconds, 2.5, if that's even possible. Was any slow transactions? Were there any error transactions? And this is your average response time at just a view. Pretty surprised it's a flat line. Normally it's more like that. The dark blue is what we call a differential analysis. That's APM learning your environment. And what I mean by environment is your transactions. Is this normally like this, or is it normally like this? Okay. So, and then of course a bar graph. So we'll go ahead and close our notebook, because a lot of this is just kind of wanting to show you from AXA how fast I can triage a problem. Now, if I go through a couple more of these, if I had a true crash, it would show up here. Okay. But I didn't have a crash. And then the same with the performance. If I looked at my transactions now, I can see that I've got a lot more load going on because we're doing the past 30 days. And I see up here that these are the main pages, right? So I'm just kind of showing you. So I would see my crash, I would see my incomplete. I've got a lot of slow. So if I click on that one, clicked on confirm prices, because this seems to be the problem child right now. Again, it takes a few minutes to load because this is 30 days worth of data, right? Now I can see my transactions here slow. I can filter by these, but they're all the same. And again, if I click on this, and if I click here, now I'm in here and I can see I've got a problem on this one. So I clicked, this one took me right to here. So I've got one user impact. Let's open this one up and look at it. My maybe problem child is here. So I'm going to open it up. And I can see my problem is number of page per hits per interval. And that's now this is an alert. I'll show you how to create alerts in a few seconds. That I fired off this alert because of this issue. But let's go over and look at transactions. And if I click on one of these, I can also see, again, the upside down birthday cake, or what I call, the transactional trace. That's really what this is. But it is coming from this HTML page, and it feeds through any other component as it's going through. So let's close this and close this. And let's look at just a few more things, and then we'll start wrapping it up. So if I go over here to this one, remember, this is the whole journey thing. If I click on my funnel, click on this. Another thing that does is just filter these. You can do that without clicking that. And if I just click on one of these, again, now you got your session view that you've seen before. I also have, the basic stuff here that I saw before. A lot of this is going to have different information depending on what you click on. Like that is just a networking, right? So events. So previous screen, the current screen the user is on. So if I need to see that, I can see that as well. I'm trying to see if there's anything different. Those are images, transaction ended, think time, so there was a think time in the code for, 490 milliseconds. So there's a lot of good information you can get right here within this session window. And if you notice, I am there, right? So, and you could have started from here to get there. So again, if I click on that, if I clicked here, this is going to take me to my journey. Okay. That's a quick way to get there. 99% of the time, I usually start in the total sessions. Okay. But you could start in the request, your page hits. Maybe you want to know about your users for the month of August, right? The last users in the last 30 days, the devices. If I had any major crashes, all that would show up down here as well. So as you can see, this window alone has a lot of good information. So I'm going to kind of recap because I know there's a lot of clicking. And if I started on my Launchpad, and if I went to AXA, the first place I'm going to go is this overview screen. Okay. And I went last 30 days just to get more information. Now from here, I can see this says sessions, right? This says performance. And I'm reading these little bullets that will kind of give you an idea of where you would go if you click it. But if you wanted to, you could always just go over here and go up from here. Okay. So if I click at performance, this takes a while to load, but if I like the network view, and it's just going to give you a list. And of course, when you click on one, right? So error, let's do this one. And then I could search by status code. That's pretty cool. Oh, let me show you this. I almost forgot. This is where I could set my alarms. Okay. You can do it from performance or here. So I can search for an item. And then over here, I can set what kind of alarm do I want. Do I want an HTTP alarm? Okay. Do I want errors? Like, do I care if it's a 404, 200, right? So there's things I can do here. You can even specify your URL by changing things. Like for an example, a lot of times you'd use star or something like that. Data in, data out, right? It's kind of what you expect. So that's where you'd set your alarms. Now, if I click on one of these and give it a second to load, this again is going to bring you to more of what's the session view. But the thing about this is I can search by problems. Now there's no problems, so that's pretty cool. Just for that one, because we're only looking at this one. So if I went back to another one, then if I clicked on the problems of it, and again, I care about pages. So since this is chromatic URLs, this is going to tell me hopefully what the worst URLs are. I don't have any errors there. And then that will get me to here. So sign on, see how credit cards are. Do I have any errors for credit cards? Most of the times, oh, I don't have any pages for that. Most of the times, whenever you're playing with this, you're really going to be focused on just clicking and getting to know where to go. Once you do that, then the rest of it's pretty easy. And the rest of it just kind of makes sense. Again, I just want to look at this one. Let's look at confirm prices. I was trying to see if any of them had errors over here. And if they did, it's pretty cool because it gives you the same thing. So pop quiz, I know you can't answer, but what would happen if I clicked on one? Well, it would take me to my session view, right? And then my session view is where I can get to APM and I can see, what I call the stack trace. And I can also see pages, URLs that's related to that one, right? You can also see who's calling that one, who's not calling that page. So if I wanted to drill down, maybe this page seems to be a problem, but it's not really the problem. So I can see where all it's being called, right? And, I can look here and look at my true stack trace, which means my code from beginning mixed in with my application code all the way to my database. I can see how my end users are being affected by that. We can also click a map to see where all it's being called from, right? So basically my end users are going to start here, come in. This is, and if you notice, that's the name of the page, shop. This kind of, I don't know what color this looks to you. It almost looks brown to me. This is more of a caution than an error. And it looks like it's this servlet right here that's having issues. Say the caution. Now these, I didn't talk about these, but these are basically properties if you want to. You can set these, now it's called attributes, but to me, they're kind of like properties. And I can click and see the metrics from here, but you can change some of these. You can create some of these. This is part of the APM that, I would talk about if I was given an APM course, but I can see the host. I can see my Kubernetes 80 service, my namespace, if I had any deployments, right? So this is Kubernetes basics here. But the good news is I can pick all this up. So if I want to pick up my pods, I can do that. The reason I'm showing you that is because maybe the infrastructure is having an issue. Maybe that's what you need to get to. But time versus effort. So, I talked about it. If I clicked on total sessions, I can see my total sessions. I can filter by who, the time. If I clicked on one of these, then I can go in and right away start debugging just by clicking on information. Now, if you didn't want to go that way, you can go directly to your errors, right? Crashes and errors. And that would show me if I have any. I don't have any. So, and then if I went to, you can see it in app screens as well. Probably one of my favorite ones is just look at the funnel. The funnel is going to show you your user journeys, right? What did the user click through? They logged in, they went to a shopping cart, they checked this out, they checked that out. But along the way, I can see already I can see my issues. So if I clicked on this, then I can see that this person went to average 2 screens, they dropped. The started activity was I just went to 1 screen. And now the session view is what you would expect to see from before. So if I click on it, then up here, I actually have something to look at. So I'll click on this, and now I'm in debug mode. I have two culprits, and if I click on this, it takes me right to what the issue was. It's really that simple. So again, time versus effort. How long would it take you to find that this is running a little bit slower because of a database problem, right? And then the question is, what else is the database affecting? Okay. So it's saying that, I'm going to go back over here. There's a lot more to this app. Like for an example, I can add a lot more apps if I want to. I didn't, right? I just have a few, just hit new app, and then you create the app and move forward. You can also create alerts from this view. Let me put this back to the last 24 hours to save us some real estate time. But what this would do is show me a list of alerts, and I can create the alerts, right? So there's a lot that you can do with just the basics of this, just by clicking around. The whole goal is to show you how simple it is, how much information you have, but also more important, show you how your end users are being affected, how it's been able to capture what your end users are doing. And then also when you think about debugging and you think about that whole debugging process, you know, how simple is that just using this product? Okay. Those are some of the key takeaways. Again, one of my favorite features is the funnel. Notice I don't have any data here because I stopped the simulation on my laptop. Let's go up here. There we go. So, but the point is that you can get a lot of good information. You can get to your sessions really fast. Most of the times, like I said, you can be working inside your sessions because you can filter these. If you have any flags, you can flag them. And do I have any crashes, right? Did any data crashed along the way? So with seeing that, let's go up here for a second, look at something else. I'm going to go back to my Launchpad. And if you have the license, I think dashboards, now I'm an architect, I'm not in sales, but I think the dashboards come with this. So I just kind of want to show you that. Another good thing you can do is relate all this to your dashboards. Now this is an AXA, but you can bring AXA data to your dashboard. Okay. So I can look at these, I can click on these and go for more information. It's going to take me to Operation Intelligence. Okay, that's something totally different. It'd be a different webinar. But the point is, this is a much better looking dashboard that you could use. If I wanted to see my, oops, let me go back. Sorry. What the heck? Yep. So if I want to see my databases, my RDSs, I can click on this, right? And this is a combination of using APM. Databases wouldn't use AXA. It would tell you if the user's having problems, but it wouldn't so much be, your metrics that you would look at. So with saying that, let's get back over here. I'm just going to close this. The other thing is the Operation Intelligence. You kind of just saw it a few seconds ago. If I click on it, this is a way of getting a lot of your alerting and a lot of good information together in one view. But the good thing about this is you can use other products, a lot of other products as well, including third-party products that's not part of Broadcom. So let's go ahead and close this. Oops, and I closed my session, but that's fine because I was going to go back over here to our presentation. Now that you saw that, this is what it would look like in BlazeMeter. Okay, so I can see in BlazeMeter, I have some issues, and then we want to go to APM and see why. Here's the dashboard we just talked about. Okay, notice this Jenkins kind of started it. Here's some of the events and alerts that it picked up along the way. And now this is Operations Intelligence. So I'm just going to kind of bounce to that, but it kind of gives you an idea. Here, what they're doing is they're opening up a ticket, right? And they have, some recommendations of how that kind of stuff. And you have the alerts down here. And this is OI as well. So let's go ahead and jump to that. This is when we look at APM. So in APM, I didn't get in details of this again because it's not an APM thing, but I can see I have alerts up here. This is the Jenkins perspective, which is the end user's perspective as well. And then over here is the attributes we talked about. I call them properties, but they're attributes. And then again, this is more of the triaging, right? Time versus effort. So impact services, your impact experience. Here's the culprit. And we could use the timeline as well. And then here's the upside down birthday cake, or in my case, is what I call the trace view. I think most people call it the trace view because it really is based off transactional tracing. And then this is another view of the logs. I mean, the dashboard. I was reading the title, it says logs, but it's really a different view of the dashboard. So if you're using the dashboard as well. So, all right, that brings us to the end. I hope that was good information. The whole point was that the user would, you can see from your user's perspectives how your app is running, but also more importantly, you can get to any issues very quickly. So, Cami, I'll hand it back to you and see if there's any questions.
All right, well, thank you, Tim, for showing us all that. At this time, we will move on to questions. Just a reminder, you can type your questions into the Q&A box located in your control panel. And we're going to wait just a few seconds to see if anyone has any follow-up questions. Tim, any last minute tips before we move on to those questions?
Probably the biggest tip that I could give is obviously talk to the sales team. You'll see that in a few minutes, because I don't know as an architect what's all licensed together. I do know that APM, DX APM and DX AXA, I'm almost positive they come together, but Operation Intelligence probably doesn't. And I think one of our sales guys told me yesterday that dashboards does come with APM. Now, if you get the AI Ops solution, you get everything, but you can also get individual components as well.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. So definitely contact our sales team if you want more info on that. It looks like we have a question. So the question is, what devices does AXA recognize?
So good question. Out of the box, obviously you saw web, right? So that's going to be your web page. Somebody enters it from the laptop or desktop, but it also picks up iPhone and Android very well. I know Windows Phone is in the making. It may be out now, but definitely Android, iPhone, and most versions, it will also tell you the version as well. So obviously your newer versions, and I think it goes back 2 or 3 versions, and then the web as well. The web will try to tell you if it's Windows, Linux, or what type of, Mac or type of operating system.
Okay, thanks for that, Tim. And then we have one more question. This person wants to know, do I have to do any work for the tracing to show up in APM from AXA?
Well, the answer is no, but it's no loosely. So if you think about a tracing, you need an agent on the device that's being called, and that's how APM works. AXA works from your front end, HTML, whatever that is at the beginning. So for it to work through, you would need that agent on APM. So if I know that, my front end, my HTML is calling a middle tier server, and if I have an agent on that server, then it will be able to pick up the trace between those two. And also, you want agents, the more agents you have, the better, because that way it picks up everything along the path. So, but as far as out of the box stuff, it will pick it up automatically. You just need those agents on APM. Nothing to do for AXA.
All right, thanks for that. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions right now. So we're going to conclude today's webinar. Again, thank you for joining. And as Tim said, if you have any follow-up questions about either of the products or packages and all that, please contact our sales team, and you'll see our contact info is on the last slide. But have a great day, and thank you for joining. Bye all.
Bye, everybody.